Welcome back to the Red Dice Diaries RPG podcast with me, John. Hannah's not available at the moment, but I thought I'd slip out another cheeky episode. And this episode I'm going to be looking at In the Pines by Tim Shorts of Gothridge Manor. Tim got in touch with myself and Hannah recently to say that he'd enjoyed the Needleman episode that we put out, and it had inspired him to do like a short mini adventure. He puts out these mini adventures and these excellent NPC cards that go out to his Patreon backers. So if you want to get involved with that, I'll put a link to his Patreon in the description of this show. And Tim was kind enough to send me a copy of his Micro Adventure 93 In the Pines. Now, if you're going to be running this or you're going to be playing in this, I'm going to be talking about what's inside it, so you may not want to listen to this until after you've sort of like done your session or whatever. All your players gone? Everyone good? Spoiler warnings in place? What? Okay, grand. Let's crack on. So, first of all, we're looking at this small A5, so digest-sized little booklet. It's got a nice green card cover with cover art by Gary Dupuy, which shows this cool sort of raggedy, bark-like looking needleman with the ever-present spines coming off it. And inside is a 4-page little sort of mini adventure scenario setting, and it describes the village of Kinwick. They're looking for the assistance of a single elf, insistent that only an elf can solve their problem. And basically, without going into too much detail, what this comes down to is that the village are actually trying to lure this elf in to like sacrifice them to these needlemen as part of some sort of dark pact. And you would get a nice little map inside of the Comar Forest, the village of Kinwick, and where their sort of altar is. And I know the Comar Forest in Tim's home setting. We get a few little descriptions of locations, all just sort of 1 or 2 line descriptions. And then we get a bit more detail on the altar. And to give you a little bit of a flavour of what you get here, I'm just going to read a few lines out of the altar section.
The trees are sparse, and through the underbrush is an ancient fallen tree. Colourful ribbons hang from the branches around it, and several melted candles sit on a smooth section of the log. It is here that the character should place the offering on the altar and read the rite in Elvish, to continue to read until the offer is taken.
And we get a little bit of text which says,
I offer thee spirits, mud and blood, stick and bone, to incite favour to honour thy hunger, to eat and hunger no more.
But of course, this is just the pretense for getting people there and to sacrifice this elf to the needlemen who are waiting in the surrounding shrubbery. We get a little bit about needlemen seeds and how they can be used and how they can be grown into needlemen, although they can't be domesticated, but apparently they can sort of imprint or become friendly on a single person. So that's a nice bit of expansion on the existing sort of description of the needleman from the Fiend Folio. We get a little bit of a description and a stat block for them. We get a description of a few other things like rams and robber flies that you can encounter in the forest. And I think as like a little sort of mini adventure that you could easily drop into any forest setting, or any time you need like a little village or something strange going on with that sort of like Wicker Man-esque vibe to it. This is pretty damn good, to be honest. I really can't fault it. And also, Tim was kind enough to send me his latest NPC card. And this is a lovely laminated little card describing Mogmud, the stone goblin. And you get a little stat block for him. There's a nice piece of art by Rick Hershey on there, showing this rocky goblin with like a mace seemingly fused onto his right arm. He's described as being one of the few remaining stone goblins alive, over 200 years old, and has watched his kind die out. They once served the stone giants before they were killed in a war against the lesser races. He prefers to travel through the forest using his natural camouflage to an extent, blending into rocky terrain and creek beds. He doesn't interact with many creatures, but can't get away from the goblins that are everywhere. They always seem to find him. The artwork on this is great. It's an interesting variant on a goblin, and you really could just drop this into your game as an NPC. And the laminated card seems pretty hard wearing. So again, I'm pretty impressed with that. So if you're interested in this sort of stuff, like I said, there'll be a link in the description of this episode to Tim's Patreon. I'd just like to say from myself and Hannah, thank you very much, Tim, for sending this across to us. It is greatly appreciated, and I've very much enjoyed having a read through it. So there we are for this short episode. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can leave us a message using SpeakPipe. There's a link in the description, or you can get in touch with us by sending an email to rddrpgpodcast@gmail.com. Until we see you next time, take care, stay safe, and keep gaming.